Domo arigato, Mr. Roboto. Domo, domo. Whoo. Dios. Show us your stuff, kid. Paul, do you have asthma? No, I don't have asthma.
Cold,
I have,
smoke, and lungs don't mix.
yeah, I have weedsma.
Oh, did he go in with you?
I think he did.
Yeah.
He probably wants to come back out.
Get your little butt out here. People want to see.
Fluffy butt. Fluffy butt boy. What do you think you're doing? Well, the stream is 3 minutes old and there's a whole 30 people here. That's 10 people a minute. Thanks, YouTube. 10 people a minute being notified. God, I love it. 10 a minute? Who would have thought such rapid notification was possible on today's internet?
You don't get a beard?
Yep.
You want one?
No, thank you. I will be smoking my beers tonight. Want a beer, D? You can't have one. It's a weird time when the late night people are about to get up and the morning crew is passed out. Maybe so, huh? Like that audiophile stuff, yeah. The internet show is wild. It's very strange, the internet. I don't think any of us really understand what we're doing on it. It's kind of like insinuated itself into every aspect of our lives, hasn't it? You're hearing crickets and frogs, probably. A mixture. Got some crickets chirping, got some frogs a-croaking. Are they cute frogs? They're pretty cute. I've had a couple hop up here and I've steered them in the right direction. They're pretty cute little guys.
We've had 2 foxes.
Yeah, we got 2 foxes that live somewhere in the neighborhood. That's pretty cool. I have petted a frog, yeah. I petted the little dude that I saved off of the porch on a stream the other night. Picked his little lumpy ass right up and put him in my hand and gave him a nice little head pat before I sent him on his way. How do I like my eggs? Over medium. I don't like that, like, runny white stuff that you get with sunny side up and over easy. I like my whites to be cooked through, but I like my yolk to be runny still.
Like
If-
dip toast in the yolk.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if we're talking fried eggs, you know. Isn't it weird that when you're looking at stars, you're looking at the past? I know. I got in trouble one time for telling my niece that. My sister is very Christian. And my niece and I were sitting at my mom's house on a 4th of July. This was years ago. She was little. She's in high school now. So she was probably in the 5th or 6th grade, or maybe even younger. Probably way younger. It's probably like in the 3rd grade. We were sitting out by the pool at my mom's house on 4th of July. Everybody else was inside. We were just chilling out there, and she started asking me questions about the stars. I pointed out a couple constellations to her. And she was asking questions. I can't remember exactly what her line of questioning was that led me to it, but I wasn't even thinking about it. I told her, I said, you know, one of the cool things is that when you look at the stars, you're literally looking back in time. And she said, what? And I said, yeah. I said, because a lot of those stars are so far away, so distant, that it takes the light from those stars so long to get to us, that those stars might have burnt out like 1,000,000 years ago. Wow, you know, right around that time, her dad came out and told her to go inside and get ready, and he kind of, in no uncertain terms, told me, like, we don't, you know, we don't talk about millions of years and stuff. I was like, oh, whoops, sorry.
Yeah, it's like 20% of people in America. That Dawkins book I read.
Yeah.
Young Earth creationists.
How many would-be scientists have we lost to dogma? I tell you what, dude, that girl, if anybody beats the dogma, it'll be her. She's fucking brilliant. She was reading Grey's Anatomy when she was like 7 years old. That's still her favorite book. Just like a little future doctor, maybe. Hopefully. We need one of those in the family. Need a couple of doctors. Are the patrons groomed to belittle the plebs, or did they get their elitist ways on their own? We kind of started it. It's kind of like the Stanford prison experiment, honestly. We kind of started it, and then they just fucking took off. I mean, they clearly have every right to feel superior, and do. I mean, what do you want us to do about it? Hello, Jason. Good evening. I don't know if it's actually going to happen or not, because, you know, plans change and stuff, but there's a chance that, and even if it does happen, I don't know, like, it's all kind of contingent on whether he's up to it. But there's a chance that later in the week, my friend Rodney might come visit me, and that would make it possible for us to sit out here and do some Apple Nasty jams and sing some old songs and talk some old shit. That might be kind of fun. We'll see. new music? I don't know. Probably not. We'll probably play some of the old jams, though. It's been a long time since we've played together, so we'll probably be a little out of practice. It'll be fun, though. Once again, that's all contingent on him, wanting to do it. COVID, masks, back porch, social distancing, get banned if you keep being stupid. Anything else? Dumb fuck.
We don't go anywhere.
You're supposed to live in a hermetically sealed bubble. Shut up, dipshit. COVID? Paul never leaves his house. I think he's fine. I mean, I don't never leave my house, but I rarely do. Like if I have a doctor's appointment or I got to go to the bank or I got to go to the store to pick up something or whatever, I leave the house. Me and Amelia are planning on maybe taking a little road trip at the end of the week, take a little day trip somewhere. We're going to leave the house to do so. Holy shit. Black Death. Smallpox. AIDS. COVID is the new terrorism. It's invoked to induce fear in people who refuse to think for more than 5 seconds. Oh, look at you, Jason. Look at you. Yeah, Jareth is not putting up with it tonight. I'm glad. I'm glad, man. These last few streams, I've been just banning people left and right, center. Must be because I did a mass unban recently. It's shocking to me how many of those people like come back and try. It's like, really?
Or they were trying the whole time.
Yeah, like the whole time they're trying, and they did. Like that's the secret to all of this shit. I've talked about this before. The shadow ban, dude. The shadow ban is the secret to it all. The ability to ban somebody, but they don't even know they've been banned. And so they just continue to blah, 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 you know. Hey, Paul, you ever do any looking into cryptocurrency? Not really. Why do people even bother? Like, you were banned once for being dumb. Why come back and be dumb? Jason, you know the answer to that question. Don't try and act like you're not a fucking troll. You know exactly the answer to that question. It's the same reason you've been banned 15 times from Dota. You're a pious man now? Well, I mean, a pious man must remember the days of his fiery youth, lest he be filled with hubris. Jason. Your piety is contingent upon it. Dota's a real cesspool. What must you do to get banned there? I mean, I'm sure you can. I'm sure you can think of a few things. And really, like, getting banned there isn't getting banned. It's you get like, you know, a little bit banned, and then you get to come back. Paul Shabisky PM'd you on Twitter wanting you to stream with him. Oh, well, I didn't see it. I'll have to catch Shabisky next time. Speaking of MOBAs, did you ever try Smite? I did, yeah. I like Smite a lot. I would threat. What was that?
I said, did that XCOM grow on you at all, or no?
No, it's poop.
Sorry for interrupting you.
Oh no, that's okay. I would threaten to spread AIDS blood on people's doorknobs. That's how I got banned. That was the least offensive thing that you did. You would scream racial epithets, disparaging anti-religious remarks, body shaming, kink shaming, sexuality shaming of all types. Jason, you were a flamethrower on Dota. Sometimes I wouldn't even like see it coming. Like Jason would be all good-natured at the beginning of a game, and then by the middle of the game, he would be lost in a tirade. I would be laughing so hard. See, that's the thing. Is like, for some reason, probably due to my trollish nature, I find people disrupting other people's gaming experiences really fucking funny. I find people getting salty at video games really funny. People screaming like horrible, hateful shit at each other over video games. There is something about that is really funny. I do. I mean, what do you think I do a show like this for? If I don't find that type of shit funny. Catch the net. Oh boy. Somebody just had an epiphany in the chat tonight. No, I do. I really like it. Like, I've always enjoyed being that source of frustration in a video game. Now, nowadays, I would, like, if I was going to do that, I would prefer to do that in a way that wasn't, like, bending or breaking the game rules. Back in the day, I used to not care. Like, if I could get some kind of edge by cheating, I would do so. Like, the game I cheated the hardest in was Diablo 1, for sure. Diablo 1 was basically a cheater's paradise because your progression data and stuff was stored on your hard drive, which meant all it took was somebody writing a little program with a graphical user interface that allowed you to edit your character file outside of the game. So you could make yourself a god. You could give yourself best in slot items. You could change all of your stats to 99999. You know what I mean? You basically make yourself an unkillable god if you had this program. And I did pretty early on. So I used it to, ruin other people's day. I don't know what else to say about it. I would kill people and there was no reason for me to. I didn't even need their stuff. I could just give myself gold at that point. I was just fully cheating. But I would still spend like 6-8 hours logged in, jumping around into people's games. People who were genuinely trying to progress in the game and play the game, and I would just blow them up and take everything they had. And it was a lot of fun to be that antisocial presence in the game. And I've, any game that allows me to do that, I do it. There are so few games that allow it anymore. You once saw. Paul, what was this? That was what the Spanish call El Terrible? Okay. Hey, Jawan, what up? Aw, Shabisky doesn't want to bother. Shatwisky used to grief players in Dark Souls with OP equipment at low levels. Yeah, I mean, you can do that, I guess, in Dark Souls. But in Dark Souls, like, there are ways to avoid running into other players and being invaded and shit. So, I like non-consensual PvP arrangements. When they added this, like, whole dueling system, two-way consent to video games to kill other players was when people like me were just doomed. I enjoy a game where if I want to fucking blow you up or shiv you in the back or hold you up on the highway or whatever the fuck, I can do it. And I actually think those types of games are far more worth playing. Like, there are so few games that allow that type of shit these days. And I think that this generation in particular is really ready for a resurgence in that type of game. They've been weaned on these pussy ass games where you can't lose. And it's like there seems to be this renewed interest in these incredibly hard, grindy games like Dark Souls, where it's like trial and error and you have to die and you have to lose all your shit. That's part of the learning experience. And it just seems like the world is so primed for an open PvP, players set the rules kind of MMO. I watched a video where you talked about your dream game and you talked about a game where you could do whatever the fuck you wanted and people enforce their own justice. I mean, yeah. I mean, certainly, like, just saying, like, it's a game where you could do whatever you want. Like, that's, a little outlandish. But within the game world, I want every job that would normally be populated by an NPC to be populated by people in the game world. I want there to be a hierarchy in the game world where people can find their niche and their play style that they enjoy and do that for a living. Like, I think that that would be fucking amazing. Now, of course, you could limit their choice. You would have to, almost. GTA roleplay, that's not really what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about roleplay. I'm talking about a game with a genuine progression system built into it. Where now I'm very particular about the type of progression system. I do not want a level-based progression system or a gear-based progression system. I want a skill-based progression system. That means that everybody, when they create a character, has access to every skill in the game. And you get better at that skill by performing that duty. So, like, if, for example, if this was a medieval game and you wanted to be a bard, you get better at barding not by selecting bard at the character creation screen and then grinding your way through 60 levels. You get better at barding by going in the game, picking up an instrument and playing it. And when you first start, you suck. But the more you play it, the better you get at it until that skill reaches a maximum number of points. It's usually on a 0 to 100 scale in skill-based RPGs. And I see no reason to change it. And then typically in a skill-based RPG, you'll be limited to a certain amount of skill points. In Ultima Online, it was 700. We called that 7x GM. So getting 100 points in a skill meant you were a grand master in that skill. And the max number of skills that you could get to Grand Master in Ultima Online were 7. And I think that that's about right. So it causes you to have these very specialized characters. But it creates these entirely free-form environments where you don't know what you're fighting. It's like, okay, let me give you an example. In World of Warcraft, right? Let's say that you play that game and you choose a PvP server. What that means is that when you're running around outside of just the newbie areas, you could get attacked by another person, right? So let's say that you see another person and they're about to attack you. Well, in World of Warcraft, you can click on that person. You can immediately see what their class is. You probably tell by the armor they're wearing and shit what their class is. You know what that class can and can't do. And there's very little variation in specs for that class. So in World of Warcraft, you have 3 trees that you dump points into. So this could be one of 3 different types of rogues, basically. Now, that sounds like a lot of variation because there's like what, 10 classes in World of Warcraft? So 10 classes, 3 variations each. That's a lot of variation. But if you play the game a lot, you kind of know what to expect as soon as you see somebody, right? Oh, that's a warrior. Well, this is what I'm going to have to use against him. Oh, wait, he's a fury warrior. Okay, I'll just do this. You know, it's not real hard to get the hang of that. In Ultima, you had no idea what you were facing. You had no clue what kind of character you were facing until they were on you. And you had to size them up real time based on what they did. And that person could have a mixture of skills that you're not familiar with. And you could prepare because you see them doing one thing and then end up hurting yourself in the duel or the fight because they have this other power that you didn't think of. And see, that's one of the things that's missing from these games. Is like in Ultima, they would like bad guys, or as we called them, PKs, would get together and form like groups. And they would roll around 2 or 3 deep into these dungeons, and they'd use the numbers advantage, right? And they'd kill people and take all their loot. There's very little you can do 3-on-1, you know? But in Ultima, it like necessitated the start of this like good guy posse that would form. Like, so some newbie would come into town crying at the bank about how like, oh, 3 reds jumped me right outside the Britain graveyard. And before you know it, like 5 or 6 dudes would be saddling up to go head to the Britain graveyard to deal with this shit. Well, eventually, post-Renaissance, it split into chaos and order. I'm talking about pre-Renaissance UO. The early days of UO, there was no like chaos order, but it didn't really change much, honestly. But yes, you could declare for chaos and order. It just kind of codified what I'm talking about. In the early days of UO, all that shit was just done by the players. There was no I declare for chaos, I declare for order, and we fight each other shit. It was like, oh, like I said, some fucking buck naked newbie would run into town and go like, guys, can somebody help, man? I was just killing skeletons right out in the graveyard, and 3 red dudes jumped me and took everything I had, and I just lost like 10 hours. Typically, what these good guy posses would do would be they would form up 2, 3, 4 dudes or people, give the newbie that was whining gold. I know that they would do this, by the way, because I would pull this all the fucking time as a scam. I would just run up naked and claim that I got killed somewhere that was nearby, and people would give me shit. Like, it was just a really easy low-level scam that you could pull, you know, jumping around to different banks in the world. But anyway, most of the time it wasn't a scam. These guys would ride off, and they would deal with this. There would be this fight, you know, and sometimes the Reds, the PKs, the bad guys would win, and sometimes the Blues would win. And it was a total battle economy that the game designers had nothing to do with. It was completely and utterly run by the players. The best weapons that you could get in the game, the best armor that you could get in the game, with the exception of a couple of really rare magical weapons and shit, were all made by players. So there was a real player economy for goods and services in UO. It was limited, you know, like it was a very early game, and so there were only a certain number of non-violent pursuits that you could take in UO, all of them crafting professions, right? So you could be, well, not all of them, I guess thievery is inherently not a violent profession. It's more of just a larcenous profession. And I would put that under that umbrella too. But most of your other options for plying a trade in UO were like, you can make armor, you can make weapons, you can make bows, you can make arrows, you can make clothes, you could, whatever. There was a couple other, make dyes, make different machines, make furniture for people's houses, etc. It was all very locked into this medieval world. I want to do it in a far future world. I know it's going to sound trite because of cyberpunk, but I've always thought of what's that fucking game? Now I'm going to brain fart the game's name. Shadowrun as a better template for the type of game that I want to make. A dark, dingy, gritty, corporatized future with hackers and netrunners and corporate suits and beat cops and average everyday business owners and shady underground business owners, gangsters and mobsters and extortion men and con racketeers and investigative units that go after each type of crime, every last one of them populated by people who want to do that job. Can you imagine? Can you imagine if you could start as a low-level kind of contractor doing some kind of building for a corporation and then make enough credits to found your own corporation and make some smart business moves in the market, and all of a sudden you have a skyscraper downtown with your corporate logo on it. You have people that work for you. Shadowrun does have magic. I'd probably drop the magic out of my universe, to be honest with you. I can almost envision this game starting you out very low, being skill-based, allowing allowing you the tools to pick up a trade very early, to decide a number of paths. Like, if you want, as an early character, if you know you want a life of crime, then you immediately start seeking out people that look like they're those, they're in that same life. You take a low-level job or whatever at the beginning, but you start watching out for people that look like they got flashy fucking jewelry on and flashy fucking clothes, and they pulled up in a flashy whip and shit. You know what I mean? And you start feeling out the dealers and the hustlers on the street. Yeah. You find a little, street gang that's just starting up that pays tribute to a bigger gang that pays tribute to the big crime lord or whatever the fuck, and you work your way up through that criminal underworld, building your skills at stealth and hacking and infiltration and hand-to-hand combat and all of these things that it would take to be kind of a rough and tumble gangster type on the streets. Or, you start the same character in the same shitty apartment and you decide, I'm going to go the fucking straight and narrow because, hey, yeah, these gangsters and these criminal people, they may have the flashy cars and they may got the fucking chains and the cool guns and stuff, but you know what? They've always got the police chasing them. They're getting busted every day. I'm going to do it the right way. And so you get a low-level job, you save up your money, and like I said, you rent a little storefront, you start a little business, you make it competitive with other player businesses, you fulfill a niche, you advertise it better, and all of a sudden, look at you. You've got a nice skyscraper downtown. And you're running the economy of the little town there, And maybe you're dealing with some of those crime figures now that you're a big fucking CEO, and you find your morality tested yet again, because once you get a little higher up on the totem pole, all of a sudden you need a little muscle sometimes to get done what you need to do. You gotta go back and talk to the Tony Sopranos that are running around out there, you know what I mean? Or maybe you decide that you want to be an agent of justice in this world. And so GTA roleplay does this. Yes, I understand. GTA roleplay is great, but there's no weight behind it. I'm talking about putting an entire RPG system behind it, skill based, where you get better at what you do by doing it. I'm talking about having absolutely no moderation, no private servers, one giant fucking city that the whole game is played in. Okay? So I understand, and thank you for letting me know for the 15th fucking time that GTA roleplay offers something that sounds a little bit like what I'm talking about, where everybody has to play by the rules. You know, I get it. This would be an incredibly expensive game to make. It would have to be updated with new options constantly. It would have to be like EVE Online, where this city shifted and changed based on player factions. Because ultimately what's going to happen is that players are going to join into these huge factions that are going to oversee different parts of the city. You know, there'll be an order faction, the government kind of police run faction, the good guys, quote unquote. And they'll be doing battle against these kind of more anarchistic, you know, crime lord factions. And it would develop into that, and it would be incumbent on the developers to continually change the game world in ways that were meaningful to that conflict and to keep it fresh for those people playing. The other setting that I've always wanted to play around with the idea of is like that type of concept, but in the Wild West. So rather than setting it in a generic kind of fantasy setting or this kind of far future setting, which is becoming more well explored recently, especially, we set it in the Old West, where you have the same myriad of choice in front of you when you start your character. You might decide that you want to be a fucking highway robber. And so you start hanging around the saloons and talking to the gamblers and looking at the shady types and asking them questions. These are all players, you know. And you find out where the gangs are and you get yourself into one and you join up. Well, I imagine that we could do... Now, see, here's the thing. I don't know if it could be done tastefully now. But I think you could do like a little bit of Supernatural in the Old West one if my vision was able to actually play it out. Because I think it would be awesome to allow players to not only be cowboys and settlers, but to actually be Native Americans as well. To join different Native American tribes, some which have better relations with the colonies and some which are, you know, at war with the colonies. And for the Native American tribes to have their own set of skills, you know, and, you know, perks and all of that, and their own set of jobs, like their own society, and really have it be like play out, have that be the societal clash play out. So you would have people that decided that they wanted to roll Native American characters, but they wanted to play a character that moved more freely between the tribal space and the colony space. So they played one of the tribes that had free and open trade with a nearby colony so that they could move amongst that and maybe be a bounty hunter or something, but still have the ability to move freely in some of the more dangerous tribal lands if they need to. Or you could have a character, you know, that you start as a character where you're a Native American that's at total fucking war with what you see as the invader. And, you know, your entire early game experience is spent amongst your own people, learning how to kill and warring against other tribes and doing skirmishes against outposts set up by players that are colonists. And can you imagine how fucking amazing that would be? You know what gives me shivers when I think about that game? The wanted posters. Think about it. Like maybe at a certain level or a certain level of notoriety, you could give yourself like a fucking nickname. So you walk up to the sheriff's office or the bulletin board at a little old west town, all built and run by players. And you look at the board and you see a few wanted posters put up by the local sheriff who is a player, and you have actual portraits of the player characters that have done whatever crime. You know, wanted Indian Joe Littlefeather for armed robbery of a stagecoach, dead or alive, $1,000. You know what I mean? You got an actual picture of the character you can rip down and look at and compare against. So if you're like a bounty hunter, you could pretend to be something else and just be riding around looking for this guy and maybe asking some questions here and there, keeping your eyes peeled, checking your wanted poster and your writ against how the characters actually looked. Dinor. It's nighttime. There are animals in this area that maybe might not be able to kill you, but might be able to put up a fight, and I don't want you getting nibbled on, so just leave it alone. Whatever's out there, just let it be. Let the Sasquatch be.
Yeah.
But just think about that shit. Like, think about walking into a fucking little player-owned town, seeing these wanted posters, knowing that each one of them is a player character that has done untold horrible things to these towns, and you're like playing a bounty hunter, riding from town to town, asking actual characters if they've seen this person. Oh yeah, I think I did see him over by the saloon or whatever. Maybe you make the mistake and you ask one of his gang members and they're like, I haven't seen him, and then he runs back, tells the guy, there's a bounty hunter looking for you, and blah, blah, blah. He's down at the saloon, and you ambush. Think about all the intrigue and crazy shit. I mean, think about it. Yeah, you're like a marauding band, like the Cowboys, in Tombstone, and you ride up on a little player town, and you move in, violate all their orders, rob their bank or whatever, and you're like, what are you going to do about it? But little do you know that the telegraph operator in town sent out a message as you were riding into town, and a posse's being formed, and they show up, and there's a big shootout in town. You know what I mean? It's just like, I think that type of game is possible right now. I just don't think anybody wants to spend the vast amount of money it would take to develop such a game because they don't think it would pay off. But I think it would. I think if somebody spent Blizzard level development money on one of those two settings that I just talked about with that framework, they would make their money back in subscription fees. Telegraph operator Discord. Sure. That's what you mean, though. You know what I mean? Why would you need to do the Discord thing? Because, like, how much... I guess the Discord thing does kind of ruin it a little bit. It is a little boomerish in its assumption that you're not using voice comms to kind of cheat the game. Because there was no way to talk via walkie-talkie in the Old West and shit, so... I don't know. There are ways for games to detect whether something's open or not, dude. Just make it a game where it like doesn't allow you to use Discord. Put that right on the packaging. Note, this game will not run while Discord is running on your computer. You must close Discord before playing this game. People will just use some other they'd use Skype or whatever. It would be really cool, though, if people actually played along with it. Kind of kills the Old West setting. Doesn't really kill the future setting, though. You could just integrate Discord and have that be part of the chat net or whatever and have an official Discord that's run by the game where people can fucking join and fucking talk to different areas of the world and ask these questions and shit and pull people into private rooms and all that stuff. Yeah. Have the Discord on your little heads-up display that comes up. Calling. So. Have newsboys scream about your crimes. Extra, extra, read all about it. Indian Joe Littlefeather slaughters entire town. That would be cool. I think the Western setting would be more original. Yeah, it would be original, but it would be hard to pull off my personal vision for it in a world where voice comms are ubiquitous, you know? Because it kind of relies on that word of mouth thing to be cool. It's not cool if I pull a crime and 15 minutes later every fucking sheriff within the next fucking 10 towns over knows and is riding straight for my ass. And they run me down immediately. Like, that's not what happened in the Old West. People pulled off these crimes, and if they were careful about it, they were able to do it in a few towns before a lawman caught up with them. You know what I mean? That's the kind of intrigue that I want to be built into the game. But in a world where you can just have fucking Discord going on your phone or whatever the fuck while you're playing, how do you enforce it, you know?
How many people would be Texas Red?
Yeah, a lot of people. I bet there'd be a lot of Texas Reds. Imagine playing as a doctor and your entire job is patching up bullet holes. Well, that's like one of the things about that Old West world, and I guess the New World too, that or the future setting as well, that you could be really fun. Like the idea of a trauma surgeon. So in Cyberpunk 2077, there are these trauma units that show up in these flying cars and shit. They land, they take a victim away, they do these kind of, you know, things. Sometimes they have to land in really hostile areas where there might still be a gunfight and shit. So yeah, it'd be kind of cool to have that. You could be a Ripper, yeah. So like a doctor where you're like more of an underground surgeon who does cyberware mods on people for cash, or you're one of these trauma surgeon people that show up in one of these things when somebody gets shot, and that's how you explain, you know, death in the game. Because both of these games would have to have some kind of crazy, like either permadeath of your character if you die one time, which seems pretty fucking harsh. I don't think a lot of people would play that when they've got like 100 hours sunk into a character and they get backstabbed or their throat cut in an alleyway or some shit, and there goes 100 hours. So I think both of these games would have to have some kind of hackneyed you can come back kind of mechanic. Oh, I love permadeath in games too, don't get me wrong. It's just the games that I'm talking about are kind of predicated on people having to pay a monthly fee, because without that, they would just be dead worlds. It needs to be actively updated, actively bug fixed, actively expanded to keep people interested. I don't know. Maybe a boring topic for some people or whatever the fuck, but I like thinking about the possibilities. I really felt that way when I played those old games, and it's so. I don't know what the fuck that was. Found a way. Use supper chat. It goes without saying how much I love you streams. I'm mostly lurking, enjoying the stream. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for the donation. I appreciate it. Or an RPG nerd, so I'm into it. Yeah, you know. That kind of human interaction in video games is all but gone. And I know a lot of people look at it as a wholly negative one that inspires nothing but spite, but it really didn't. It inspired a lot of friendships. Like, I've talked a lot about my time in Ultima Online because I really feel like it was a wholly unique game experience that I really thought was going to be the future of gaming, and it wasn't. I mean, it kind of was that massively multiplayer, you've got your character and you build it into what you want to be. That became the future of gaming for a long time. But it wasn't in the way that it was presented to me in that first experience that I had with it, which was this incredibly detailed, incredibly large for the time, open world where anything was possible, really, within the confines of the game's rules. I mean, you couldn't become a fucking unstoppable god or whatever the fuck, but you can come pretty close. You know? If you were good at it, you spent the time and the effort. And there's not a lot of games like that, you know? And when I say anything, I mean anything within the game's rule set. You want to kill somebody. Like, there were legit highway robbers in that game. And you'd have role-playing encounters and shit where it's like you'd be like running from one town to the next, right? And these dudes would cast a paralyze spell on you. And instead of just killing you, they'd like surround you a little bit and be like, hey, if you try and run, we're going to kill you. Be like, all right, what do you guys want? Your money. I don't have any money. That sounds like bullshit. Check his bag. Somebody will snoop. You could actually snoop people's bags in this game. He doesn't have any money. All right, asshole, get out of here. You know? It was pretty crazy. But Salt killed it, really. The transition from that to EverQuest to World of Warcraft happened because people were salty about losing everything on their character. Not the character's progress, but the fancy schmancy ploop plop whatever they had on. They're like, I want to keep that forever. And they cried until eventually they became numerous enough that the devs of Ultima Online split the world into Trammel and Feluca. Feluca or Felucia or whatever it was. Feluca, I can't remember. I stopped playing the game before they did it. They split the world. So in Feluca, you could attack. It was like you could attack anybody you wanted. It was like the old game. And Trammel was this new, oh, you can only attack someone if you consent to a duel, and everyone plays with everyone else. And all that was a bunch of fucking people standing around and just showing off all the fancy gear they had because there was no intrigue anymore. Oh, thank goodness we got rid of those horrible killers, and now we can just play the game. Oh, do. It was horrible. Horrible. So it ruined the game. The next game that came after it was EverQuest, and that came with PvE and PvP servers, which was basically Feluca and Trammel. And guess where most of the people went? To the Trammel servers. And guess what wasn't all that fun? The PvP servers, because everybody there was a person that wanted to kill everybody else. So there was no herd to prey on. And thus no fun. And thus no lesson to be taught. And then World of Warcraft came out and basically was like, PvP doesn't really exist. It's not a real thing. I mean, it happens if you want it to, but it just like you appear like fucking 15 feet from your body and you go on about your way like nothing happened. It's no big deal. And then, structured PvP is a thing. Now you go into an arena with other people that want a PvP, and if you win a bunch of battles, you get special gear that you can use in the arena. Yep, no dupes. But that's the thing, is like in Ultima Online, I was that dupe. When I first started playing, I was totally that dupe. I was out there like splitting logs, like, oh, I'm gonna be a lumberjack, and I'm gonna make bows and arrows. Chop, 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 chop. And then I'd make little bows, and oh, I got better. I'm making better bows. And I'd go sell all my bows. Yay! Chop, chop, chop. But what I didn't do was put my gold in the bank. I hadn't figured out the bank thing yet. So I played for like, I don't know what it was, like a bunch of days. Chop, 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 yay! Chop, chop, yay! I got pretty good at making bows. And then all of a sudden I was running back to town. I'd kind of gone a different way, I guess, than I usually went. This dude walked up to me and just like, ooh. And I was like, shit. And I watched as he walked over to my corpse, and I could see him lifting the gold out of the corpse onto him. All my money, like my life savings, bro. And so I was immediately hooked on the game when that happened. Like a lot of people, I think, might have quit the game. And that's maybe why they stopped doing it. But for me, dude, my brain lit on fire when I was like, oh, you can do that? So I had to find that guy. So I went back to where I saw him, and I fucking had nothing on me. And I bothered him until he took me under his wing and showed me how to steal shit and kill other people and loot bodies and all that fun stuff. And that was that. Yeah, Water. That was his name. And like that was just the coolest experience. Changed my whole fucking outlook on that game. Dude, I never saw Water die, not one time in the game, so I certainly didn't fucking raise my hand against him. You don't raise your hand against a made guy, you know what I mean? He was called Water because he'd slip right through your fingers every time. Always got away with the bag. When did you lose contact with Water? He stopped playing at some point. Like, we were never like all up in each other's business. Like, we played together for a while, and then but he was all over the place and I was all over the place. And once I had the skills to do what I did, I kind of went off on my own, you know, and he was off on his own. And if we saw each other out in the wild, we'd be like, what up, man? But we had some kind of falling out. I can't remember what it was. And I got kicked out of his guild. And I can't even remember what it was over, to be honest with you. It was some stupid shit. I don't know. He got butthurt about something, but he didn't play very long after that, so maybe he was just cutting ties before he played. He was kind of an RP'er. So, you know, whatever. Who the fuck needed him at that point? He taught me everything I needed to know. I don't know how proud of me he was. He was I remember he didn't like some of the tactics that I came up with. Like, I did this, man, I don't even know if I can. I've told you guys before the name of my character was Toothless Crackhoe. And that's a very insensitive character name. But, you know, this was back in the 90s. That type of shit was allowed. I didn't spell it, you know, I spelled tooth with an F. Toothless Crackhoe. And I made a female character. And, yeah, it was spelled toothless, but with one S. Toothless. And then crack was spelled C-R-A-K. And then there was a dash ho. That was the name of my main. And so he was very disdainful of the name of my character in the first place, and he was very disdainful of one of my oldest scams that I came up with. which was I would go out to the Britain graveyard and I would be like, you know, hey, who wants a blowjob? Because you could do this bow maneuver. Your character would like bow over, and I'd be like, I'd go out there like naked, and I'd be like, hey, who wants a blowjob or whatever, and people would laugh. Most people would be like, no, no, no. But every once in a while, somebody would like play along. They'd be like, I'll take one. You know, like, what's your what are you charging? You know, and this whole time he's standing right next to me and I'm digging through his pockets and stealing from him and shit. That's the whole point of doing it, is to get somebody dumbass to stand right in front of you. And so, like, I'm like, oh, yeah, you know, 20 gold. And he's like, I'll give you 15 gold or whatever. And I'm like, all right, whatever, 15 gold. And he'll pass me 15 gold. Once again, the whole time I've got his bag snooped open. And I'm picking everything out of it that's worth a shit. And then I fucking do the bow in front of him a bunch of times. And I say, like, thank you. And I run off screen, and by the time he realizes he's been duped, I'm in another area. You know what I mean? I'm blowing somebody else. And Water didn't like that, so maybe that's what we got in a fight about. I can't remember. Yeah. You got scammed by Toothless. Yep. That was kind of the problem, though, is like, eventually I became kind of too notorious to pull shit like that. And, you know, that scam only works so many times, you know. But it was a fruitful one for me because at the end of the day, if he catches me stealing, I lose nothing because I'm naked already. You know, I lose nothing but a trip back to the shrine or whatever the fuck. And then he, you know, he stands to lose all his reagents. He stands to lose his magic weapon if he's got it in his backpack, you know. I cleaned up on that shit. I cleaned up on a lot of different things in UO. But I think the most lucrative thing that I did was probably my favorite thing to do, which was being like a body snatcher, I guess. Like, I would go to areas where I heard there were big battles going on, and I would just, like, stand on the periphery and dart out and just loot a bunch of really expensive shit off the dead people on both sides and get away with it. Like, that was probably my most lucrative thing and the thing I had the most fun doing, because it came with a lot of risk. You could load yourself up and then get caught and lose it all and be like, fuck, you know. But if you got away with a big fucking load, yeah. Oh yeah, dude. I was all about it, man. I was all about being antisocial, taking from other people, scamming. You know, I was never about the straight up combat. If it came down to that, I had a couple combat skills, but it was not enough to get with a dedicated combat character. Because, you know, I had stealing and snooping at 100, and hiding at 100, and stealth at 100. So that's 400 of my 700 skills right there. So I had, you know, three more skills to work with, whereas a dedicated combat character is going to have all 7 skills aimed towards combat. So I'm pretty fucked in a straight up fight with most people, but if some dumbass newbie like attacks me, I was a crossbow user, so because I had such a naturally high dex as a thief. Do any console RPGs? Not really, man. I played a little bit of Persona 5, and then I kind of just fell off. I'll probably go back and play it again, but I'll have to start from the beginning. I got to a point where I realized, like, man, I've kind of been playing this game wrong, because it was my first introduction to the Persona games. And so the whole time management element, I know that it's pretty simple, but like it's not as simple as it seems. And I wasn't like using my time all that effectively or whatever the fuck. And so I got pretty far into the game. Well, not super far, but like to the third palace I think it was the third palace. And combat wise, I was doing okay, but just like not great. Not as well as I wanted to be doing. And I realized that I was really kind of like not greatly optimized. So I kind of quit playing, and I'll probably go back, and now that Royal's out, I'll probably just get Royal, but probably not until I get a PS5, which is probably going to be a while. So I don't know. Maybe I'll get Persona 4 Golden on the computer and just play that, since that's on Steam now. But yeah, outside of the Persona series, I haven't really jumped into a whole lot of console RPG shit in a long time. I like the old school stuff, man. Jason knows what I like. Jason knows what one of my favorite old school, or at least probably my favorite old school RPG is. Baldur's Gate 3 is coming out. Warcraft sucks, yes. No, my favorite old school console RPG is Lunar the Silver Star for the Sega CD. Really simple but really great game. Cool combat system. Cool sprite graphics back in the day. It got a remaster, and I don't really like it. I like the old school version of it. I could emulate and play that for you guys and probably be pretty good at it, because I remember where all the good grinding spots are to this day, so I could probably get through that game pretty decent. That might be kind of fun. You guys think? Yeah, Shining Force 2 is probably my second favorite. I could play either one of those pretty well. Dude, that'd be pretty fun. I could just boot up, like, as a chill stream. Just boot up some Lunar. You guys remember Marianne Williamson? I was just thinking about her. No. Yeah, it might be fun one of these nights. Maybe I'll set it up. I'll get an emulator downloaded. Dude, Lunar the Silver Star is really good. Lunar 2 Eternal Blue is pretty good as well, but not as good. Another one of my favorite old school console RPGs is Chrono Cross. I like Chrono Trigger a lot, but I didn't grow up with it like a lot of people did during my era, because I never had a Super Nintendo, so I didn't play it until later in life, so it doesn't necessarily occupy the same kind of nostalgia place as it does for other people. I still think it's a great game, but Chrono Cross is one of my favorites of all time. That's a good one. Go-to PS1 games: Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1, 2, fucking Final Fantasy 7, fucking Cool Borders. That you got to throw that one on there because it was dope. What else is on the PS1? Metal Gear Solid, Chrono Cross. I never played RuneScape because I'm not a fucking pleb. You realize RuneScape was browser-based, bitch-made fucking version of the game that I just spent like an hour talking about, Ultima Online, right? You're dismissed now. You realize that RuneScape was bitch-made, JavaScript, browser-based, free-to-play version of the game that I've been describing for an hour, right? You're dismissed. See you next time. No, I didn't play in the sewer because I was on the fucking penthouse, dipshit. Sorry. Did you play RuneScape? This fucking RuneScape addict in here. You realize, once again, I'm going to say it a third time because typically repeating 3 times it takes to get a RuneScape person to understand what you're saying. Browser-based JavaScript version of the vastly superior game that I just talked about for an hour. The sandwich autists play RuneScape. Jesus fucking Christ, man. I know, there's always a fucking RuneScape dork out there, and I feel so bad for them. Because they spent their lives playing a pixelated shitfuck version of a much better game in JavaScript of all goddamn horrible looking, horrible sounding, screeching, nonsensical things. Jason, you and I both know that Mabinogi doesn't fucking count. I've played the game, Jason. I've seen what it is. And you and I both know that Mabinogi does not count. I played Tenchu, yeah. The Way of the Ninja. That was a good one. Oh, dude, another dope-ass PS1 game, Bushido Blade. If you can get your hands on like an emulation of Bushido Blade and you want to play a hard-ass one-hit kill fighter where you got to be fucking on point, you got to block, you got to parry, you got to fucking know your strikes and know when to dodge out and feint and fucking get that hit in, because it's like 1-2 hit kills depending on which character you pick and how hard of a strike you hit. I've tried Kenshi. I actually streamed Kenshi here on the channel. You can find it by going to the channel and searching for Stinky Sill. It's an old build of Kenshi. But yeah, I played a couple of early tries at Kenshi. Poor Stinky Sill. Bushido Blade is pretty dope. That was a pretty good PS1 game. Did I say MGS? I did. Of course, Metal Gear. What else is a good PS1 game? And there were so many fucking classic games on that. The problem with me is I've had every PlayStation up through 4. And they start to, like, I'm old, man. I remember them all, and they're all starting to blend a little bit. Like PS2 and 1. Kind of blend a little. I agree. Silent Hill, that's right. That one was, and Resident Evil as well. Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3, I believe. As well as Final Fantasy 8, which I think people shit on unnecessarily. Final Fantasy 8 has grown in my esteem over the years. It's actually an underappreciated entry in the franchise because people just don't like the look of it. Well, fuck you. Final Fantasy 9 goes back to the cartoon look, okay? It ain't poop balls, dude. It's actually pretty goddamn fucking good, Jason. You just suck at it. Let a real man show you how to play it, Jason. With a real beard. Don't bring your peach fuzz and your stubble if you're going to play Final Fantasy 8. You got to be a man with a beard. And a long flowing mane, Jason. You better let that little twink cut grow out. Because you're not going to get through it unless you're a Samson. A god of the fucking thunder, Jason. That's how you get through. Ogre Battle 64. Yeah. I got to play that game a couple of times, but dude, that game was there was one copy of it at my Blockbuster and it was always checked out. I got it one time. Once. Such a pain in the ass, man. Oh shit. I'm forgetting a really big one. Final Fantasy Tactics was a PS1 game, unless I'm not mistaken. And let us not, dude. Dude, Siphon Filter. That was a pretty cool game. Final Fantasy Tactics. I will tell you, I'm going to tell you the truth about Final Fantasy Tactics. You guys remember I've talked about my friend from high school, Kevin. I've never played through Final Fantasy Tactics. I sat and watched my friend Kevin play through Final Fantasy Tactics. I didn't watch every play session, but 9 out of 10 play sessions, I was there chilling with him, smoking a doobie, and watching him play that fucking game. And I was fucking raptured by that game. That is a beautiful, awesome, fucking cool game. Disgaea as well. That's another PS1 game that you should look out for. Disgaea, I think, first came out on the PS1, and it was pretty fucking good. Another tactics RPG. Twisted Metal 1 and 2. I was really good at both. I'm not going to lie to you, man. I was really good at Twisted Metal. I wasn't the best. I played Destroy All Humans. I wasn't all that enamored with it. Dude, Twisted Metal, fuck yes, bro. Fuck yes. Tactics Ogre, yeah. Yeah, Twisted Metal Black on PS2 was good. You know what PS2 game was really good? Star Wars Pod Racer. Unironically. That game was actually kind of dope. Crash Team Racing. Yeah. I never played any of the Crash Bandicoot games. That character fucking annoys the shit out of me, bro. Like, I refuse. I refuse to play that character. I've never played a Crash Bandicoot game for longer than fucking 5 seconds, dude. Like, I refuse. I outright refuse. Crash Bandicoot, he looks so fucking dorky. I can't imagine playing a character that's that fucking lame and actually being invested enough to get through it, dude. I have played Superman 64, and it is every bit as crappy as everybody says it is. I had a friend that owned it. Never got past the fucking ring level. It was ridiculous. Worst controls ever. Cleo Watts, dude. Cleo Watts has a lucrative gold deal he would like to talk to me about. Oh, shit, dude. A lucrative gold deal. He's here, dude. It's Cleo Watts. Crash looks like half of... I don't even know what he looks like, dude. He looks like a big fucking shitty lack of ideas on the part. Clay Fighters. Oh, yeah. Clay Fighters, dude. Yeah. Clay Fighters. The Goop guy was cheap in that, though. Don't even lie that the Goop guy that could turn into like a boxing glove and a saw and shit wasn't the cheap pick. Everybody that wanted to fucking make sure they won picked him. because he had ridiculous moves. You play Freedom Fighters. I can't remember. Maybe Clay Fighter 63 and a third for the N64. Yeah, that was a pretty decent one. Once again, though, the Goop guy was fucking OP. Oh, dude, yeah. Twisted Metal Black is worth your time, dude. It's fun. Cleel. Oh, Cleel. Play it for sure. Yeah, that's one thing that I kind of wish that I did have, and I could probably attain. Getting the games would be hard, and having a bunch of all that would suck. But I wish that I had like a Genesis with a Sega CD and some Sega CD games, and a PS1 with some PS1 games, and a PS2 with some PS2 games, and maybe even a PS3, because I had a lot of PS3 games. If I could have my PS3 back with all my PS3 games, that'd be dope. That would be pretty cool to just have those generations of games. Got to get an old CRTV, I know. Yeah, I checked out Star Wars Battlefront 2. I started playing it, but I got kind of bored of it. It just, I don't know. I just felt like it was like endless mashing, running into other people, and then every once in a while you got to be a Jedi, and it was cool at first, and I was kind of like, after a while, I just felt like it was just, I stopped playing it. I just got bored with it. I was never really all that good at it, but neither was anybody else I was playing with. It was just kind of one of those games. Does it take a lot for you to get invested in a game nowadays? I go through like phases where I'm really into games, and then where I just don't really want to play them or can't really find one that scratches the itch. Like I've been trying to find one of these like XCOM-esque tactical kind of games. I bought that game Phoenix Point during the Christmas sale for like $10, and so I installed that shit, and it didn't. I don't know. Maybe I'll give it another try. Then I reinstalled XCOM 2, and I don't know, man. Maybe I was just maybe that's not. But see, it's wholly possible that's not even the type of game I really want to be playing. There's something about it that scratches an itch that I want to, like, I want a game right now, but I just don't know what to play. And so I haven't been really playing anything. Yeah, I mean, certain kind of games, if you don't have your bros sitting around and stuff, it kind of becomes lame. I agree with that. I like getting on Discord and playing MOBAs. That can be fun. Maybe I need to dip back into that for a little bit. I don't know that I want to though. That can be a salt mine, but I don't know. I've just been kind of bouncing around a lot. I finished Cyberpunk and flirted with the idea of just starting a second character and doing that again. But then when I looked down the barrel of playing the game again, I was like, I need to let this one marinate for a while. I really don't want to be playing again. Yeah, Pillars of Eternity, I know, or Path of Exile. There's so many fucking games. I don't know. I don't even know how to play Heroes anymore, Jason. That's not true. I still know how to play Heroes. I'll tell you what else I still know how to do, Jason. Get a fucking 5x multicast. Blink, 5x multicast. Wait till the stun ends. W. First blood! I got some on you. Dude, I know how to buy Orb of Venom first, and I gotta imagine that still works against Peruvians. Oh yeah, look at it go. Roll out the barrel, feel it in your bones. Hots is Hero of the Storm, yeah. And we're also talking about Dota 2. Both free to play, by the way. Dota 2 is actually pretty cool because you can play every character in the game right out the bat. It's kind of not cool because it's one of the hardest fucking MOBAs out there. And I played it for like a year and a half with Jason, and I still suck at it. Are you suggesting I should try it? Why not? What could be the harm? I really have not played an RTS game of any stripe for a while. Probably since Warhammer Total War 2 or whatever. I played a lot of that. The only race that I liked playing at in that was Chaos. I had a really long, really good Chaos game, but all the other races, I just get bored. I tried so many good games on your recommendation. Just beat Subnautica. You have good taste, sir. I know. I just like games, you know. I try out a lot of games. Yeah, TDS doesn't do it for me. I don't like tower defense simulation shit. I don't like it. I don't like it. It pisses me off. Not my cup of tea. I don't know what I'm looking for, man. I really want to like XCOM, so maybe I'll give it another shot. Maybe I'll go back and try not be salty at XCOM or something and dabble in that a little bit more, but I realize XCOM is supposed to be hard. I don't know, Cleo. An elderly felon currently running from justice. Dude, I don't even know if Cleo is still alive. Got 250 hours in Dota 2, and I'm an absolute hopeless noob. Well, me too. Played the original Deus Ex. I played the second Deus Ex. I played the first of the reboots, and that's it. And I liked all three. I'm a fan. I'm a fan of the Deus Ex games, especially the first one. I think the first Deus Ex is the best Deus Ex. But I'm a hipster like that. I tend to like the older and the simpler. Invisible War, yes. Those games sound really dope, specifically the way you talk about them. Deus Ex definitely on my list, yeah. Especially one, that'll run on a potato, so you shouldn't have problems with that. Invisible War was trash. I have mixed feelings about Invisible War. I think Invisible War caught a lot of shit from people because it wasn't Deus Ex. It wasn't like just like Deus Ex. It wasn't meant to be. If you play it as a different game, it's actually not that bad of a game in comparison to some other follow-ups. Arthur Wellesley, dude. What the fuck? There's historical figures now in my chat? I played, yeah, I had an NES, so I played Zelda. Zelda is still, in my opinion, one of the hardest games to play blind ever. As a kid, I remember not getting very far in Zelda because I didn't have the money. Like, my parents weren't trying to buy me no $20 fucking Nintendo Power guide on how to beat Zelda. So you know, I don't know. I never beat it. It's just a fucking hard ass game. You gotta know how to bomb this or bomb. Like, there's one tree you gotta bomb to get a certain thing. You need to beat the game. And it's like, how do you know to bomb that tree? Fuck if I know. You're supposed to run around and bomb everything, I guess. Same thing with Metroid, man. Metroid, I've never really been all that great at Metroidvania style platformers. That's something that I've had to learn about myself. I don't really have the fucking. Now, I'm okay at like platformers, like Super Mario style platformers. I'm okay with. But the Metroidvania style combat platformers, I just can't be good at them. I just don't have the reflexes for that shit. Mega Man, no. I'm good with Mega Man. I never had a Game Gear, no. A Game Gear, that was the dream back in the day, but I never had one. Touring the environments in Metroid is worth the experience. Well, I've watched people play it. I've watched speed runs of Metroid and shit. I watch it at least once a year, usually, when they do it at one of the GDQs. I've seen Metroid. I just can't really play Metroid. Link to the Past is a great game. I actually did beat that game. It's one of the only Zelda games I think I've ever beat. Might be the only one. I am not a fan of the tooting, fruiting Ocarina of Time, and we can fight about that if you want. But the Ocarina of Time and I have never been, I really don't care to play it. I did like Majora's Mask, though. I did like Majora's Mask. I played that. How dare you? Ocarina is best. No, Ocarina is lame. Man. I never played Mischief Makers, no. That is not all of Zelda, dude. Not all of Zelda is so ostentatious with its ocarina. At least Ocarina controlled time and Majora's right. Exactly. I like Majora's Mask because it was dark and interesting. Ocarina was just... Didn't like it. Didn't like it. No, sir, didn't like it. No, I know people love it. I'm not trying to poop on it. It just was not my favorite. But I was also, like, when it came out, I was already getting into my teen years, and seeing a little cartoony Link blowing on an ocarina, like, really colored my perception, you know what I mean? Ocarina of Time, it was... Dude, it was dark when those one guys came out. The crazy, like, woo! Like the fucking dudes whose mouths would stretch when you weren't looking at them. Like, yeah, it was dark when those guys were around. I'll give you that. That was a little spooky, but come on. It wasn't angst. It was just like a change in taste. It was just like a lot of these games had a harder edge to them that were coming out at the time. Like I had a PS1 at home. I didn't have an N64, so that probably colored my perception as well. But I played enough of them to understand, and eventually went back and played Majora's Mask all the way through. But I had a PS1, so I was playing Final Fantasy VII, which had a distinctly more adult kind of flair to it. It had actual cussing in it and shit. I was playing, you know, just different games with a different kind of fucking feel to them. Metal Gear and first person shooters and just all these kind, I was into that. I was more into those. No, I didn't. Well, yeah, well, back in the day, I did play Smash, but I never really got into it. I was really like, we got into fighting games a lot, so we played a lot of like Soul Calibur, a lot of GoldenEye. We had a lot of it's like real salty GoldenEye tournaments. We had, once again, just like a lot of Soul Calibur 1 and 2. That was our shit back when I was a teenager. Mortal Kombat 2 would often be thrown in if people wanted a beat down. Played a lot of fighting games. I just kind of like as a teenager, that's really all I was into. I stopped really caring about platformers, and I've gone back since and learned to appreciate them again, but it means I missed out on a lot of games that a lot of people think are like, oh my god, they're so classic, and they just don't hit me the same way. I played the first Halo a lot, and then never really played many of the Halos after it. Once I built my first PC, I dropped console gaming. And I played a lot of PC gaming too, because I would build my own PCs. So, my early 20s and shit, I played a lot of the kind of more multiplayer shooters that were out. Like Quake 3 Arena was played a lot, and Unreal Tournament 4 was a big game that I played a lot. Also played a lot of RTSs on the computer. StarCraft 1 and 2, played a lot of those. But I don't know. I'm just fucking spinning out nostalgia about video games now. I'm going to go ahead and end this. Thanks for watching. Bye.